Hey VC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to post a quick video here. I'm just going to kind of jump on a thread that I've seen a few people kind of throwing around. I think it's a thread. I don't think it's a contest. But, and again, I should have checked before I started shooting the video here. I think it was Gary over at Physical Format Rock and Roll. I think he's the one that kind of started it. But I watched, Chris Profe did a response and a number of the people as well. And as always, when I hear people answering questions and asking questions, it makes my wheels start to turn. That's typically what makes me jump on board a contest or thread. So again, I think it was Gary that started this, but if I'm wrong, I apologize. But yeah, it was basically just to show your top 10 cassettes is what it boiled down to. And I really liked kind of how everyone was doing it, because it wasn't like my top 10 most valuable cassettes or the best albums ever or anything like that. It was just kind of like cassettes that had some type of sentimental value. It could be actual monetary value, but just whatever about the cassette just made it something that was like one of your top 10 cassettes to own. So that's the same thing I did too. I didn't go for just like valuable or rare or even my favorite albums by some of these artists, but I kind of jumped all over the place. Sentimental value, some monetary, everything. So we'll just kind of jump into it and you guys let me know what you think. So I'm going to start off with kind of an honorable mention, since these aren't really counting towards that, but I thought they'd be fun to show, especially because they're singles, which as you can see here, we have Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirit, and Kitty, Save Some Love. I've had these since, going back into high school. And the reason why these are kind of a bit magical to me was because this was a single that came out when Smells Like Teen Spirit was first released. So my very first experience in hearing Nirvana, I don't remember if it was on the radio or if a friend had shown it to me, but like after I heard Smells Like Teen Spirit one time, I was like, oh, that's freaking awesome. And I ran right out to the mall and bought this single. So, and I don't mean this, I mean this actual copy. This has been following me around for years and years and years. So sentimental value, again, I'm not counting as in my top 10, but I just wanted to kind of share it. And the exact same thing with Save Some Love by Kitty. Just kind of a nice little poppy song that I really liked from the late 80s, early 90s. But I remember accidentally recording that song off the radio, and I didn't catch it in the section where they ever mentioned the artist name or anything like that. So when I went to the record store one time and I was just kind of like, I saw that single and I was like, Save Some Love. I was like, that has to be it. Excuse me. And back then I had very little money to spend on anything. So, even to spend a couple of bucks on something like this was taking a risk. But when I, put it in my cassette deck when I got in my car and then discovered it was the song I thought it was, I was just like really, really happy that day. So again, this copy's been following me around since I was 16 years old, 17 years old, so quite some time. So just kind of some neat honorable mentions there. But yeah, let's just kind of jump into part of my 10 that are kind of special to me. So the first one here we'll go with is Kiss, Crazy Nights. And I actually have 2 copies of this, but this is a sealed copy, which is kind of nice. So that's one thing that makes it kind of special to me. But then also having a sealed copy of it, but also knowing that this is kind of my favorite Kiss album. So one of the cassettes I remember just really playing all the time when it first came out was this. And my friends kind of dug it. Man, they were Kiss fans. They weren't necessarily as crazy about this album. They kind of liked the song Crazy Nights. But man, I used to bump this thing all the time, which is also why Turn On the Night became one of my probably top 5 Kiss songs off of this album too. And so even every time I look at the cover, I can just remember sitting right outside the school, like on the edge, waiting for my mom to pick me up after practice, and just having this on in my headphones, and just listening to Crazy Nights and everything over and over and over. So that cassette has a ton of meaning for me in that regard, because it got played a lot. Another one that kind of fits that same realm is this one here, which again is kind of nice because this is the same copy I had back in high school. E40, The Mailman. Still by far my favorite E40 album, his debut album there. And this is one too that the summer of my junior year, my friend Derek and I were working a basketball camp, And I just remember that because we would take turns driving, and every single time we were driving up, we were listening to The Mailman over and over and over and over again. And this got so much play throughout those years, especially back in the good old days, when you had the $1,000 car with a $2,000 system in the back, which is basically kind of where we were. And this is just one of those tapes that we just bumped all the time. So every time I hear this, there's so many memories attached to this album. And I really wish they would get around to pressing this on vinyl. That would be awesome. But definitely one of my favorite cassettes there. And one that kind of goes right along with it, is this one here, which is DJ Magic Mike. And this is Bass is the Name of the Game. And for anyone who had woofers and an amplifier in their trunk back in the mid 80s, late 80s, up into the mid 90s, you probably had, even if you weren't a hip hop fan, you probably had either a Too Short or a DJ Magic Mike tape in your car at some point. DJ Magic Mike was just it was just a given. And basically what it was he didn't make any incredible songs. He wasn't, matter of fact, sometimes a lot of his songs didn't even have lyrics and stuff to it. He was more like a DJ type of hip hop artist. But all he did was make your trunk rattle. I mean, that was his entire thing. Feel the bass again. Bass is the name of the game. Like every single thing he did on every single album was, you buy my new album, I'm gonna blow your speakers out and crack your back window. Like that was his whole claim to fame. And again, just this is one that we bumped all the time. And the first song I was really introduced to off of this tape by my friend Sean Scott. Gosh, freaking the memories. That was Lower the Dynamite. And he came over my house one time and he got in this new system in his car and he was trying to, show it to me and everything. And he put in Lower the Dynamite and it was just like, that is freaking awesome, man. La, 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 la. It's just all bass boom. So all the Magic Mike albums, but especially that cassette. And again, that's the exact copy from back in high school. Another one which is kind of cool too, just because this is a hard album to find, period, especially on cassette and really on vinyl. But Jugulator by Judas Priest. I think oftentimes an album that's a little bit forgotten about because it is hard to get a hold of, because it is really a solid album. I mean, I guess it was kind of that time period when what's his name came in for a couple albums when Halford left, but really, really awesome album. And I found that just for a couple of bucks in the store. It's like a $20-$25 cassette. So that's a very nice one that I love having in my collection as well. Again, just because it's not an easy album to get your hands on. So Jugulator by Judas Priest. Next on the list, another one of my top 10 cassettes, Somewhere in Time by Iron Maiden. And I know I've told this story so many times, but screw it, I'll tell it again. This was my first Iron Maiden album. I had heard singles like Run to the Hills, stuff like that, but this was really the first full Iron Maiden album I ever kind of dove into. Like I said, I've told that story when my friend Matt gave me this cassette, and I remember just the moment he handed it to me and I was looking at it and just seeing that cover right there, all I could think was, I don't care what's on this, I have to like it. Like it's a given. I have no choice but to like this album. And sure enough, I just kept listening to it over and over and just kept liking it more and more. And oddly enough, I remember Alexander the Great was probably the first song that really kind of stood out. But yeah, I mean, still to this day, I still claim this is at least being tied for my favorite Iron Maiden album. Of course, it's tied with Power Slave and Seventh Son, with three-way tie, but still. So yeah, this one's really special too, because again, this is just one that I played to no end back in the day, and it was really my introduction to Maiden. Another one, and actually I'm kind of counting these as two. I'm counting these two as one, but these are pretty special in my collection as well, which is Metallica's Death Magnetic and Metallica's Saint Anger, which are really two pretty cool ones to have, both sealed, which is also kind of nice. And so Death Magnetic, like this cassette is probably going for like $80 right now, because of course, again, there weren't a ton of cassettes put out back when this album came out, and it's kind of hard to find. But so strictly from kind of a monetary value, but also just with it kind of completing my Metallica collection, because I had, you know, all the studio albums up through Death Magnetic, so it was cool to get my hands on this one as well. I don't know if there was a copy of if they ever did Hardwired, if they did a cassette version of that. And even back when I got this, I had to order this one from Malaysia because there were no cassettes that were floating around, you know, the US and Europe and that type of thing. So this was actually a Malaysia cassette, but it wasn't official, and again, it's kind of cool. So got a nice copy of that, and I said the other one was the Saint Anger. So I'm going to count that kind of as one. It's just showing Metallica, but that's definitely a favorite in my collection. Another cool one to have, Radiohead, OK Computer. You know, obviously a classic Radiohead album. Everyone kind of knows this one. But I think what really kind of makes this one a little special to me is that, you know, typically when it comes to Radiohead, you just pretty much always see them on CD and vinyl. I mean, it's just kind of, you just don't have a lot of Radiohead cassettes that just fall out of the sky all the time, especially OK Computer. So every time I see this on the cassette, it's kind of like, you feel like you have something a little special there as well. So that one's kind of cool. And then we got three more here. Always talk about this one too. And of course, this one's very special because this is Billy Idol's Rebel Yell. What makes this special is not only the fact that, again, this exact copy I'm holding was the first cassette / album that I ever bought out of a music store. You know, like the first one ever in my lifetime. My parents had gone and bought, you know, some 45s for me when I was really young, like, you know, Debbie Boone, You Light Up My Life, and another one, Bites to Dust by Queen, and all of that. Celebration by Kool and the Gang. So my mom would go out and buy some 45s like that, and they were kind of, you know, the families or whatever. But when I was in 5th grade is when I got this cassette, and this was the first full album that wasn't recorded or anything that went into the store and was mine. So extremely special in that regard. And one of the reasons why, and again, I'm gonna repeat the entire story, but when I first discovered MTV, the first video I ever saw was Eyes Without a Face by Billy Idol. So this cassette / Eyes Without a Face was my introduction to all things new wave, MTV, and the whole nine. So it holds a very special place there. And you talk about a cassette that just got played and played and played and played. If I had to take a wild guess, I would probably say this album is the album that I've listened to the most throughout my lifetime. You know, just the number of spins of individual songs, it'd be a safe bet that it's at least in the top 10, but maybe right up there at number 1. So very, very special album to me, and I still love it to this day. One of my absolute favorites. Love every single song on it, from I think Rebel Yell's the very first song down to the last song, which is Dead Next Door on side 2. And yeah. So awesome stuff. Love Billy. Love that cassette. And the last two, one I think is kind of special as well, is this Jodeci, Diary of a Madman. Another really, really good cassette. What makes this one special is it's one of the cassettes that really kind of marks me leaving home, going off to college. There's just it's kind of a couple of albums or a couple of cassettes that really kind of define what I remember listening to and enjoying, kind of that first semester freshman year, you know, kind of thing. And you know, another one that could have been right there was New Order Substance. That was another one because I actually discovered that one my freshman year. Bitch Better Have My Money by OMG was another one. And then this Jodeci, Diary of a Madman, is another one I just kind of played out that first semester of my freshman year. So this definitely holds a lot of a lot of sentimental value in thinking about, leaving home for the first time. And then the last one here, number 10, as far as one of my 10 favorite cassettes, it's going to be Led Zeppelin. It's kind of a double cassette here, and this is the BBC sessions. It's a 2 cassette, just kind of clear cassettes like that. And this one's kind of special for a number of reasons too. Number one, it was really cool when I found it because I had never seen a copy of it on cassette a number of years ago when I picked it up. So it was really exciting for me when I actually got a copy of it. And for a while, this was like my go-to when it came to listening to Zeppelin, like going back into the probably like mid to late 90s, but probably toward the late 90s, I would say. This was my big go-to for Zeppelin. I just, great live recordings, great performances, and I just really fell in love with this cassette. And I first discovered, or to even think about asking or looking for the cassette, I think it was in 1998, I was doing my second ever bodybuilding competition. So I used to be like really buff. But I used to do natural competitive bodybuilding. And I won my first show, which was awesome. So it kind of gave me a lot more confidence. It's kind of like, you can get a little squeamish if you've never done a show before and all of a sudden you're going to get up in front of 300 people in nothing but your underwear and go, look at me. That can make you a little, But I won my first contest. So, I was definitely a lot more confident then. So going into my second contest, I was much more relaxed. And there's always, when they're right before they get to the finals where they introduce the winner, there's something they do that's called a pose down. Excuse me. So when they're doing, well, they'll do mandatory poses where everyone's standing there and they'll say, front double bicep, quarter turn to the right, side chest, and like everyone's doing the same pose and they're kind of just comparing everyone. And so then when the judges are getting ready to make their decision, or after they made their decision to tally the scores, they do what's called a pose down. And so what they'll do is they'll just throw on music, and then for 2 or 3 minutes, everyone's just on stage, just kind of, posing and getting in each other's face and kind of having fun with, the crowd gets really pumped up with that, and the judges are tallying at that moment, and then a couple minutes later, they line you back up and you find out who won and what place you got. So anyway, long story short, I just remember like I was feeling really good about that particular show, and I thought I had a really good chance. I got second place in that one, so I was still very happy. But I remember like when the pose down music comes on, they put music on when you do that. It was the song, The Girl I Love, she has long, dark, wavy hair. That's what they played. And so I just got this association with just, being in that very positive moment and feeling like really confident. And I heard this new Led Zeppelin song that came on that I'd never heard before. And I was just kind of like really pumped up and into it. So every time I hear this album and hear that song, like, it just takes me back to that moment that was pretty awesome. At least, for me. So that's kind of where this holds a bit of a special place as well. So, yeah, those are 10 of my favorite cassettes. And of course, you could ask me the same question next Wednesday, next Thursday, or whatever, and I'll probably pick 10 completely different cassettes there too. But yeah, I think it's a great thread. Geez, Elmer Fudd talking here. Great question. And yeah, as always, thanks for watching, VC, and we will talk to you soon. All right, take care, guys.